I'm Amber Espinosa-Jones. I'm one of the producers of SDAFF of the Clap. Thank you for being here today.
Aloha kako, my name is Erin Lau, and I'm one of the producers for the film. Our director can't be here today, but she sends her aloha. Jelena Keen Lee is the director and also cinematographer, so she's a lady of many talents, and she sends her aloha.
As is Erin.
Awesome. Okay. This film is so powerful and always activates me in a very necessary way. Would folks be open to taking a collective breath together? Does that feel okay as a grounding offering? Yeah, so just feeling your feet on the floor and your sit bones wherever they are in your chair. Just taking a deep breath in. And out. Maybe one more. Good measure. And out. Thank you. These folks just arrived from LA, so I really appreciate y'all being with us amidst all the festival crazy mayhem. And I was wondering if there was anyone that you're bringing into the space with us today in honor of this film, be it a beloved or an ancestor or whoever that feels important to bring into this space with all of us as we're going to be talking together.
I'll just share that I think we just got off of a bunch of screenings for the Hawaii Film Festival, and where it was luckily enough we could have Antipua, Havane, Kapolei, Mehana, all of them with us for various screenings. So I think whenever we do a screening and they're not here, I always love to bring them into the space, and especially Hailey too, Hailey's daughter who passed away. I think she's always heavy on our hearts whenever we do a screening.
While we were screening we just did quite a few of the islands. We did Kauai, Lanai, Maui, and Hawaii Island. Hilo was on Thursday night. And even in Hilo and Waimea, I think we had in total over 300 people. And the people, there's just so many tears and so many emotions through this screening experience. And so it's just a reminder that in all that we do, we carry each other, that we represent one another in our lahui, in our community, in all of our actions. And so I'm just thinking a lot about home every time I share this film and all the people who are connected, not just to this movement, but all movements in our fight for Aina and the things that we are sacred to us and connect us. And so I guess when I share this film, I carry home with me.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing them in the space with us. This film is really a labor of love on all fronts. I mean, literally on the front lines. And the beginning of the film notes the great care extended to share these stories and these struggles. And I feel that care as an antidote to the traditionally extractive nature of filmmaking. And so I'm wondering if y'all could speak about your process with that care and how that informed your contributions as producers and what that looked like for you working with people on the front lines.
There are a few different practices we put into place. I actually joined the team a little later. I met Jelena and Amber through the front line. I was there in 2019 with different hui of people helping to document and put out stories that sort of countered the false narratives coming out. So I was working with Kanai Okana on OEB TV, and what really just blew me away meeting Amber and Jelena through the front line was how much trust, there's a time to have the camera up and there's a time to put it away and focus on your relationship as people, to support one another, to put comfort in one another, and they just really understood how that the movie is the movie and being people and the movement is another thing. And so I got to see their short film, but I also just getting to know them as people and talk to them really saw their priorities in place where the movement and the people and their humanity came first and then the movie came last. And I think that was what was important in this process and sort of guided us as our North Star, in that we were always in communication about, is this a good day to have the camera? Or is this a day we gotta take a step back? Is this a day where it's good to have this conversation, or is that gonna be too heavy to go into? Because everyone is navigating trauma, PTSD, plus this was also through COVID, and so there's just so much to tread very lightly with. And so I think those constant communication, recognizing consent can always change. And then Amber gets the credit for this. She also has put into action mental health stipends, because sometimes when you're sitting in a circle and talking about some of the things they went through, it just brings up a lot. And so trying to also give people the space and resources so they can find the things they need was also important to us. Is there anything you'd add to that?
No, just that I think as if there are any filmmakers in the room too, just making sure you plan for like double the amount of time that you think you need, because in order to like let things sink in between like yourselves as a team, but also your participants when you share something with them, and then life happens. Like, you know, we shot the film over 6 years and almost like 2 years of editing, and it could have been easily longer. But I think everything, when you're doing it with like care and doing it collaboratively, takes a lot longer, you know, because you have to everybody's moving at their own pace. And so just like understanding that that's how the process is going to be.
That's so beautiful, that what you just said, Erin, about like the humanity coming first and the film coming last, and then going slowly, like at the speed of trust. I feel very strongly about that, and I feel that in the film. It feels also really special to have Standing Above the Clouds here again, like thinking about time and how much time it has taken from, like, in 2020, Standing Above the Clouds was here as a short and is now here again as a feature. And so I'd love to hear what that journey of this process has been like since then, and how it has changed, and like what it's been like living and growing with a project over a long period of time, alongside of a struggle too that continues to be ongoing.
Yeah, well, I think Jelena always wanted it to be a feature film, and then we ended up getting a grant from Pacific Islanders and Communications to do a short version. And I'm so glad that we did, because it really helped us get together as like a team and like hone our filmmaking like skills, and also have something that could be used as an impact tool with the activists like immediately, you know, because we finished it in 2019, started touring it in 2020. So it was something, while we finished the film and released it while they were still in the front line, and it was something that could be used to kind of like continue to build just you know, our like support for the movement while we were still working on the feature. And we really thought that the film was going to be a lot about the telescope, you know, and then when 2020 happened and we kept filming, and it really became about the sisterhood and the healing and all that. And I think that story wouldn't have emerged if we hadn't have went through the process beforehand.
Since the film chronicles over 6 years of material struggle, and that struggle continues on, I was wondering, like, as a young organizer and cultural worker myself, like, what were like the most important organizing lessons that you take away with you to ground you in like the state of the world that is now? Because Indigenous communities have been fighting for land protection and land stewardship for generations and generations, and that will continue. I mean, given the current climate, both politically and quite literally. And so I'm so hungry for like those lessons, and like how we can stay activated and stay engaged, even after the credits roll.
I think my biggest lesson from this film, and really from Antipool, was how much tradition and cultural practices can be used as a grounding for reminding you of your purpose. The fact that we chanted 3 times a day from morning, afternoon, and sunset was to remind us of why we were there, and to sort of just re-ground us of we're not here to party, we're not here to do anything else. We're here for the Mauna, and we're here for our fight for our existence. And I think there's so much I take from that. And even when we were no longer on the front line, and Havane, you see a little bit of it at the very end. There's a Huike with the women in yellow. That was a healing group, a women's group with different women who were on the front line, and she created a space built around, we would learn Oli and we would do cultural protocols together, and how much just power and healing came from coming as a group, being able to share in a safe space, and then using our culture. And not everyone in that group was Hawaiian, but just being able to reach into these really old things that are a part of us and find our power in it and chant, and like there's something just about your voice into the wind and like feeling connected to something bigger. But it just, I guess, I'll take a step back and say I'm Native Hawaiian, Kanaka Maoli. I went to Kamehameha, and if you know Hawaiian school, I've been around Hawaiian things a long time, but I never really I never like in my soul and in my gut understood the power of what culture can really be until I went to the Mauna and until I met Pua and Havane guys. And so I think finding those tools that you can share as a community that are bigger than yourself and help ground you in what is sort of greater than you, I think is the key to resilience and also sustainability and activism work. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll just add, for me personally, I feel like my own like family's background in like the Black Power movement and Chicana rights movement, it's a lot of like raw anger energy, you know, because everybody's like, you know, there's so much anger and pain there. And I think kind of similar to what she said, it's like the kind of reminder to be, from Havane specifically too, and Antipua, just to be like soft also in the power and being soft and connecting, you know, with your ancestors in like a soft way is also power. And this is a scene that we cut, but Antipua, there's a scene, a couple of them where she talks about like, you know, now, like, don't ever raise your voice. Like, I never want to hear you raising your voice as a leader, like, you know, and like yelling at people, or like, I want you to like people to feel welcomed. I want people to not feel like guilty for not showing up enough, or like showing up, you know, too much or too little. I want there always to be just like an essence of like, no, you belong here. You belong in this movement. We want you here. And so I think that kind of like attitude is really, really integral to keeping the movement alive, and something that I took away and you know, letting take away.
Can you speak more about? I'm so curious, like what scenes were also not included in the film, like out of that care, you know? And like how you went about that process of like, okay, what wants to be shared in this film and what wants to be, I guess, in a way protected, if that's how y'all saw it.
Well, I know her. Our poor editor, Tiana T. Roy, she was amazing, and she worked on the short, but I think there was just so much, like we filmed for so long, and there's so many different stories that we could have told, and like, you know, there's like Mehana's teenage daughter who you don't see very much, but we like filmed a lot with her, you know, and there's like all these other moments, both at home. And so I think during the editing, it was really about what's serving the story, and also what won't leave our audience like just depleted, you know? So I think there's so much strength in so many of the scenes, but we had to really make the decisions of like, what in the flow of the film, what needs to be there like emotionally that people can actually hold.
I'll also add, there were a few other sensitive emotional scenes for our different family members that we ended up taking out, because we had a few conversations, and ultimately it's about, this film will, once it's out in the world, we can't take it back. A lot of people will see it and it may come out, you know, go out of our control. Please don't illegally download it. But my point being is, once it's out in the world, it's POW. It's out in the world now. And so having conversations and understanding the impact of what is it to put these pieces of yourself out into the world, and are you going to be okay with that 1 month from now, 1 year from now, 10 years from now? And so having that kind of continuous conversation and understanding for our whole team was important to us, and knowing like, okay, I don't know about this one, and that's fine. We're gonna take that back and make it work. And there were ones we also had to have a conversation back and forth about, and sometimes it was just a discussion of like, I'm not sure, and then at the end of the discussion, okay, yeah, now I'm sure. But there were a few we ended up needing to let go of.
And just because we're in a museum too, I want to like say that, you know, we do have like idea, because there's so much footage from the movement from 2019, from 2015, and from, you know, like historically that we've been able to get to work with for the films. So we're really interested in doing like an archive and just making sure that that footage, specifically around Mauna Kea, is preserved, you know, for generations to come. So we really look forward to hopefully being able to create that.
So beautiful. Thank you both for this film and everything that you've shared. I feel like the political intervention and the cultural intervention is so real, and they really collide in this, like, yeah, nourishing way. So just want to lift that work up. I would love to open it to the audience for questions, if that's okay.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. You just shared that there's a lot of unused footage and a lot of possible different storylines. This film stands alone on its own. It's very, very powerful. Would it be possible to create additional, maybe smaller films, maybe not a full feature, with the additional content that you have to continue to tell the stories in all the different kind of avenues, because it reaches so many different aspects, so many different people, and it'll possibly land for everybody differently. But that way, it, you know, that footage isn't just archived, but it's viewed and it's honored and it's respected and revered, and useful in a way, and to be of service.
Yeah, one of the things we've actually started to do is they do these kukulu exhibits where they have photos from the front line, and also will sometimes teach the oli and hula that were on the front line. And we have actually been creating video segments that play at those. And so one thing that's not in the film that we've discussed is even like creating a larger segment of the whole kupu, where you had different nations and groups come and give offerings to the kupuna and to the mauna. And so there's quite a bit of that footage, and that's something we're thinking about. Maybe that's something where it could stand on its own and we can make it a part of the exhibits. So when you visit some colleges or some of the museums, you can also see some of that work. So we're really trying to think of a few different ways beyond the film. The film is just one piece of this greater strategy, that we can continue to get different stories connected to that time and the greater movement. So absolutely is my short answer.
Yeah, and I'll just add, so it's Auntie Pua's organization. She runs Mauna Kea Educational Awareness, which Professor Mayfu has worked on with us in the past. And the UC students at a lot of different UCs across California are very active, because the University of California is one of the largest funders of the telescope. And so they've put on a series of these kukulu exhibits and shown the film at different parts. And so we're hopefully going to work with them more concertedly in the next year.
Anybody else?
Yes, hello, thank you so much for all of your comments so far. I was curious to learn more about what happened with the police officers. You know, was there conversation later? Did they change their minds later? And any of the other men that were portrayed in the film? Thank you.
I can add, because one thing I'll say real quick is after the kupuna got arrested, they were dropped off down quite a ways down and had to make their way back. And then, as you saw, their charges were luckily dropped in court. It was really hard to be face to face with people who are your family and your community, And I know, I didn't personally experience this, I know for a number of the kupuna and families in our film, they had conversations with the police after, and there were a lot of tears and breaking down and guilt of what happened. And it's hard because we understand they have a job, and I think I feel so much love and compassion and empathy for what they are dealing with. I know a couple people who quit, but I don't know how to put an easy answer besides saying we have all put love on them because we understand it's not easy for them to have to do that either. And that's why you don't see in the Mauna Kea movement, we're not yelling in their faces, we're not mistreating them, we fed them, we gave them lei because they are our family, and we don't want to be on opposite sides. I have one question back there.
One more question in the back.
One of the comments I wanted to make was during one of the speeches, they were saying to be very positive, and I noticed that you were saying that that was part of the mantra, I guess. Do you see that as a more positive way of actually protesting versus some of the other types of protests that we've seen in the country?
I think all types of protests are valid. We live in a police state, and it's like we need to, resist in any way possible. I do think that specifically it's what has sustained the Protect Mauna Kea movement for so long, and I think particularly to keep divisions from within the organizing, it's super important to keep this layer of kindness, and we don't talk about as much in the film, but kapu aloha also within movement organizing, so that we don't fall apart, because what the opposition is trying to do is have our organizers be ripped apart by infighting, so I think when we remember to respect one another and speak to each other with kindness as an organizing tactic, it is super effective.
We also wanted to be cautious about some of the narratives that were coming out and not giving them trying to avoid any evidence of oh yeah, it's just a bunch of angry Hawaiians and look at how they act. And I think trying to show, no, we are very pono in what we are trying to do. This is not we're not fighting to fight, we're fighting because we love something greatly. And we're trying to act from a place of that love and act from a place that's pono. And even when I was on the 2015 stand, I was there working with OEBTV. I remember some of the organizers that year saying, the second someone throws one stone, it's pow, we're done. And I think the fact that that mindset has stayed as resilient and as strong and firm as it has, now we're in 2024, is really remarkable.
I think that's all the time that we have. Did you all have any closing remarks?
We have a petition. We're trying to get 500,000 names, and we're 5,000 short. If you are interested in signing the petition to help support the stopping of TMT and support Mauna Kea, you can go to Mauna Kea Education and Awareness's website. It's also, if that's the other option is you can go to Google, type in change.org Mauna Kea, and it should pop up.
Also Instagram, Protect Mauna Kea, Standing Above the Clouds Instagram, and then mkea.info.
But I just want to mahalo you all for being here. It's a Saturday afternoon. You could be out in the sunshine, and it really does mean a lot to see you all here. And know that, there's so much aloha for our Hawaiians in diaspora from back home, and for just everyone who's standing up for the things they believe in. and fighting for, whether you're Hawaiian or not, Indigenous or not. So we just want to aloha you for being here. And yeah, thanks guys. Hope you like the movie.